A lot has changed in the last few years. The wizard gave me superpowers. And then everybody got superpowers.
Started from the bottom, now we're here.
All right, here's the situation.
Started from the bottom, now the whole team here.
The daughters of Atlas are coming to hunt us.
Children stole the power of the gods. You ripped it from our father's core.
Okay, I feel like maybe I should be writing all this down.
You sound insane. You realize that?
Yeah.
The whole world gone crazy! Seriously?
It's showtime.
It's the possibly anticipated movie sequel to the biggest hit of 2018, featuring Zachary Levi. Talking Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods, and what this means in the Warner Brothers DC Extended Universe. I'm your host, Brian Gill, joined as always by Kent Garrison. Kent, how are you today?
Excellent, man. Ready to talk some Shazam.
Shazam.
You gotta yell it when you say it.
Gotta yell it. So I said 2018. I meant 2019. I apologize. I will write a notarized letter to all of Shazamdom and apologize for the mistakes I've made. If you heard that voice, you know that's not Richard Barton. No, he's banned. He's banned. We hope the FCC will let him back in next week, but we'll see. He said some pretty inflammatory things once again, but you know, and he lives.
And they don't monitor podcasts,
yeah,
except in extreme cases.
Yeah,
I guess disqualified.
Look, and we should be clear. We stand in support of the suspension. The FCC was right in this case, unfortunately. But we hope Richard's in therapy right now, and he's gonna be better.
Rehab,
be better. Yeah. It's both.
Rehabilitation.
It's a little John Moran situation. Anyway, we don't have Richard Barton with us, but the even better news, that's the good news. The even better news is we have Batman Shane standing in his place. Shane, how's it going, dude?
It's good. It's good. Yeah, I feel like I do have to be introduced this time through since I don't quite exactly sound like myself. I apologize to the listeners. I'm a little bit under the weather, so my voice sounds a little bit weirder than usual, but good to be here as always. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to talk some Shazam and DC in general.
This is a movie, guys. This is a movie, and it came out in theaters, I think, despite the Zaz's best efforts to not ever put out a movie. This movie came out, and it has sparked, I don't know if controversy is the right word. There's been quite a lot of digital ink spilled regarding this movie from both the general public and the cast and crew, director, etc. of said movie. And we always talk about the business of this sort of thing. So I feel like we get that out right off the top. I'm going to go to you first, Kent. You know what? Let's do this. Let's just do very basic general thoughts. Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Do you understand the criticisms, etc.? And then let's talk the business of it. And then we can get into some specifics about the movie. Kent, you first. General thoughts on Shazam, Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, actually really enjoyed Shazam. Thought it was one of the more fun DC movies that had come out. Then the pandemic happens like 2 months later, and I think all plans kind of changed around for what they wanted to do, how they wanted to approach things. This is a really interesting case because of the way the past 6 months have transpired with Warner Brothers, with DC, the changing of the guard, the bringing in of James Gunn, the Black Adam release, the Black Adam failure, the lead up to this, the failure of this. It's been a really interesting time on the movie business side of things. So I've been following this story for quite a while. I was interested to see how this movie would do. Didn't think it would do great because Shazam didn't do great. So to me, anyone that thought this movie was going to make more than Shazam is crazy. I never thought that would be like, we're bringing in Helen Mirren, guys. That's $100 million more. You know what? So I don't understand the mentality of like, oh, just wait till the next one. This is when it's really going to get back on track. And I mean, the movie itself, general thoughts, it was fine. It was a fine movie, but it reminded me, the discourse around it around the weekend, especially today, which we'll get into some of the stuff that broke this morning, I'm sure, regarding Rock the Dwayne Johnson's involvement in this. But it reminded me of Quantumania, where it's like, really? This is the movie we're piling on, guys? This movie's perfectly harmless, just a movie, pretty fun, funny, good cast, charismatic lead. Yeah, sure, it's cliche, but all these comic book movies are we finally starting to realize that they're cliched now as a mass audience? Like, maybe that's the case. There's a lot of circumstances, I think, that could have affected the performance of this movie at the box office. I'm excited to talk about that with you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Shane, what about you, man?
So, first off, I want to get a couple facts straight, Kent. The Black Adam movie was a huge financial success. Let me just check my notes here on the source. That would be from
you're only folling The Rock on social media.
Yeah, it's The Rock on Twitter. That's my only news source there. $100 billion plus franchise on that one. No. Yeah, I mean, so who would have thought, like, randomly, if we would have had this conversation last year, that Shazam 2 would be the most controversial film to date of 2023? What a weird notion. Yeah, looking forward to kind of getting into that with you guys, because obviously, yeah, I mean, let's get the elephant out of the room. This movie severely underperformed at the box office, which is with disappointment to everybody all involved. Generally speaking, I thought the first Shazam was fine. I thought it was kind of like a B, maybe a B plus if you caught me on a good day type movie. I thought it was fine. So when I went into this movie, my bar was pretty low. And I got to say, I was delightfully surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie, much more than the first one. And there were certain things about it that I really enjoyed. So I think maybe just because I went in with such a low bar, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. We'll get into it a little bit more, but yeah, I'm going to give it a positive grade, not to bury the lead too much.
I think it's a little lesser than I'm with you, Kent. Like, I like the first one. Fine. I'm aware that probably one of the reasons why I dug it versus some of the other DC movies is that it feels more like a Marvel movie than what we have.
It has a color palette, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. There's a joke,
right.
A joke that is not the anyway. Yeah, it feels more, so that's probably going to be more my bag. I think that it fits that point. It's fine. This is like, I would say is like slightly lesser than the first one, but the same level of like, it's fun. It's dumb fun. I also thought of Ant-Man, Kent. It was Quantumania. For both in terms of like the general vibe. Obviously, those are very different movies from a structural standpoint. Ant-Man at least attempts to be really weird in places. This doesn't at all really, that kind of thing. But just in terms of like a general, this was a fine time at the theater. They're both pretty similar movies. And then also the same thing of like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, there's been some really terrible movies in the DC Extended Universe, and I don't really know why we've decided that we're going to pick on this one. It's kind of a strange place to be. But again, I'm a simple, basic man, and I like this vibe a lot better than I like most of what the Snyderverse has been. Let's be real, all of what the Snyderverse has been. And if that makes me basic, that makes me basic. But I thought it was fine. I thought it was a good time. I took Coop, and we enjoyed the experience overall. There's definitely some things that you can be critical of, and we'll get into those things as we go. But I would say for me, like, the quality of the movie has less to do with the reception than everything around it, Shane. Like, all the discourse is. I would say this. Let me put it this way. At its worst, I think this is like harmlessly mediocre, and that should generally not result in
vitriol.
A relatively poor reception at the box office, a relatively poor Rotten Tomato score, and then just like generally bad vibes with the culture and within the discourse and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, for
obviously, there are many other reasons why it is that way. So I don't know, Shane. You want to get us started in the business side of this?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's I think the first question that we need to discuss that's going to kind of branch out to all the other questions that we're going to hit is, by and large, now that Marvel has had a movie that critically was not well received and it underperformed, and now DC has had a movie that was critically not well received and it underperformed. And I think that by and large, people are general audiences are starting to get superhero fatigue. Are you guys getting that vibe as well?
Yeah.
Sure.
If I'm being honest, I think it has a little bit more to do with the Ant-Man reception than it does with this, given that these DC movies have done so much worse, really both at the box office and critically over the last decade than the Marvel movies have. But I agree with the principle of that. Of I don't think you can any longer, like, for example, I'm getting ready to do movie draft in a week or two, and getting that ready for the VIPs and stuff, and Marvel movies for sure, and then a step or two down the ladder, DC movies have always, and this is maybe a very stupid metric to look at or lens to look at this through. Those always have been very safe movies to draft for the most part, because there's like almost like a baseline of what it's going to do box office wise and Rotten Tomatoes wise, and that is no longer the case. And I think that does illustrate that there is real superhero fatigue. And I think you can make the case that movies like Creed 3 doing really well, having the best open of any of the Creed movies, of even like Cocaine Bear doing really well and taking a chunk out of Ant-Man's second week or whatever it was, Top Gun Maverick being the second biggest movie of the year last year, et cetera, et cetera. I think that there's enough evidence to suggest that the biggest of the big, like the Batman did great last year. Wakanda Forever did really, really, really well, but it still was a little bit under, I think, what they probably expected it would be. But the point is, I think it's not quite as safe of a money-making operation as it was pre-pandemic and Avengers, let's say, the final Avengers movie, Endgame. Yeah. Anyway,
because the thing is, both of these movies are similar in the sense that both Shazam and Ant-Man were characters that by and large people did not know their names 5 years ago, and both of these movies are mediocre in the sense that none of them were trying to reinvent the wheel, right? They were just kind of middle of the road movies. And so the fact to me that it seems like general audiences by and large and critics have both kind of responded going, nope, no thanks. It seems to me that the tides are starting to turn and people are starting to get a little bit of superhero fatigue. Perhaps maybe not enough superhero fatigue that we're going to stop making these movies, but enough where studios need to start thinking, hey, you can't come to me mediocre. You got to come correct, right? If you're going to make a superhero movie now, you got to go all out. You got to get good talent. You got to have a really wildly inventive story. You got to do things I haven't seen before. You can't just put a person in spandex and have them save the day. That's just not, we've had enough of that. You got to do something different now,
Yeah.
I don't know where you fall in this, Shane. Very interested. Does a James Gunn Superman sound good to you? Because it doesn't to me. And I like James Gunn.
I don't know. I mean, James Gunn has a very distinctive style, so it will be interesting to see if he can take a character that is not really his bread and butter or does not really seem to fit his style and do something cool with it. I'm absolutely willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's a very talented filmmaker, and he's taken two properties that I could have cared very little about, from Guardians of the Galaxy to Peacemaker, and made them, these really inventive and cool stories. So I'm certainly willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, just if you're giving me a list of 30 directors and of who's going to tackle Superman next, and his name is on it, he would get crossed off in my first round. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if I want a ton of needle drops in my Superman. We'll see. I mean, it could be awesome.
Yeah.
Could have a great vision for this character and be something totally different. And we're all going to see it and be like, man, that's the Superman we've been missing. That's it right there. Nailed it. I hope that's the case.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Christopher Nolan did with Batman, right? You're like, I don't know about this Chris Nolan guy. I like his movies, but I don't know, him in a Batman movie? That sounds kind of weird. And then he did it, and it was, this is what we've all been missing. So hopefully that is the case with James Gunn. It's just like, on paper, you're right, Shane. I would have crossed off the name and maybe gone a different direction. I'm surprised they're not leaning more on Matt Reeves and giving him kind of the keys to this kingdom because of how well the Batman was received, and I would like to see his DCEU or whatever. But
yeah, but to me, the Batman was so good that it's like, hey, don't spread that man too thin. Just let him focus on the Batman 2 and then the Batman 3 if he wants, and then maybe we'll talk something else. But don't put too much on his plate. You know, that's what happened to Taika Waititi, frankly. And look at how bad Thor 3 or 4, whatever it was, the new Thor movie. Look at how bad that was. It's because Taika Waititi has 17 projects he's actively developing for Marvel, Star Wars, and everywhere else. You know,
because I think the reception of this, I'm wondering how much of the fact that like they made this announcement with James Gunn in what, September?
Yeah.
Right around the time Black Adam came out, like maybe a couple weeks before, right?
Yeah, like October.
Something like
September,
that.
October.
Maybe the week before.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, because these movies rely so heavily on opening weekend, fanboys, people who care about the property to go out and support them, that essentially it was a signal back in September of we're going a different direction.
Yeah.
And by the way, the characters that we're going to go ahead and put this out there. No more Shazam, no more Black Adam, no more Cavill, no more Snyderverse. We're going to put that out there. It's their fault for putting all that out there. And I know they do. They had to probably, they want the stock price to go up, people to keep investing, all that type of stuff. But like, if they had kept this all under wraps until Guardians came out and say, James, all right, James, as soon as Guardians out, we're going to make this announcement. Well, then maybe this is a whole different situation. Who knows?
I think that's a huge part of this. Because, I read the rap story today on The Rock, and look, I'm happy to lay blame at the feet of Dwayne Johnson because he's insufferable, and Black Adam sucked, and his whole just having made that his entire personality for the last year or two has been freaking brutal, man, and I can't stand it. And it is very clear if you read the article that the Rap had, or the summaries, if you want to go that route, that are out there for free. He made a really bad power play that didn't work, and that did not help.
Let's summarize that. Okay? Let's summarize. So what I read from the story was basically he forced his hand to make Cavill's cameo happen in Black Adam, whereas DC wanted it to be Levi, Shazam, to set up this Shazam movie, to look ahead. Okay, this is the next thing, like kind of like Marvel does, let's preview what's next, maybe 2 movies from now type of thing, set some stones. Shane, I want your opinion on this as somebody who works in the studio system. How can you go behind their back and make an entire scene in a movie happen? The movie gets released and everything. How can that happen?
I mean,
how can they have not been behind it?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are stars, there are people, whether they're directors, writers, or, and mainly they're actors, that certain studios want to be in the whatever business. And obviously at that time, Warner Brothers made the executive decision that we want to be in the Dwayne Johnson business. So we're going to trust that he has a vision for this, and we're going to bring Cavill back and put him in the suit and all this stuff. And again, just for the record, Shazam and Black Adam have been like the Batman and Joker since their origin in the comics. So it absolutely makes sense that Shazam shows up. But anyways, so they just decided, hey, we want to be in the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson business. And so they made it work, and they shot that scene, whatever. And reading some of the behind the scenes stuff on Black Adam, reading some of the behind the scenes stuff now on Shazam 2, it doesn't really seem that anybody in DC really wanted that. But at that time, they weren't going to tell The Rock no. It does sound to me like after the, kind of the critical and commercial failure of Black Adam, and now the critical and commercial kind of failure of this movie, that they've cooled on The Rock significantly, and they've we don't want to be in the Rock business anymore. We're going to trust James Gunn and Peter Safran to run our DC department. Thanks very much. We'll call you if we need you. But yeah, dude, it happens all the time. I mean, there are dozens of studio. I mean, another example.
But why is the story? Why are they blaming The Rock for this? Why can't they just say, we decided with The Rock that this is what we wanted to do at the time, and now we're going a different direction. Like, it seems like The Rock is what they're making it seem like. The Rock hired his own crew in this secret studio and shot this scene and edited it into the movie. And then DC and Warner Brothers found out about it and were like, what the crap? This isn't what we're doing. That's what makes it what it seems like.
I took the article to suggest at least that The Rock was trying to pull a power play and that they were not happy with the way that, regardless of how it went down, whether it was like, secretly filmed or whatever else, I think that he took the I'm the star and here are my demands thing to a level that made everybody at Warner Brothers, I think, probably went from we're uncomfortable to like, actually we hate this guy, we don't want to work with him anymore.
Okay, but if that's the case, Shane,
product, yeah.
If that's the case, if they made the executive decision, we want to be in the Dwayne Johnson business, then as soon as that cameo happened, they should have been on set shooting another Superman movie with Henry Cavill. Like, you need to commit to it and go for it.
Yeah,
they did this to themselves. They pulled out before they even had a chance to let Dwayne Johnson's plan play out. Not to defend his side of it at all, but it's like they put this on themselves.
Oh, no.
Dwayne Johnson's just taking the heat for it.
No one is saying that DC overall didn't shoot themselves in the foot for a variety of reasons. And I want to loop back to something, a point you made earlier. But I don't think that The Rock secretly filmed the cameo with Henry Cavill. I think he literally just told the head of Warner Brothers or the head of DC at the time, we're filming this cameo with Henry Cavill, or I'm never going to be in a Warner Brothers picture ever again. Done deal. And when you throw down the gauntlet like that, he's a big enough star, or maybe he was at the time, that they were like, okay, he's called our bluff. We'll do it. We'll get Henry Cavill back. We'll put him in the movie. I think it was only after the movie came out and the online response was, yeah, having Henry Cavill show up in this movie was pretty stupid, that Warner Brothers is like, see, we told you, Dwayne, we told you this was a bad idea. And, and now they've decided to go a different direction. But no, I don't think he filmed it in secret or whatever. But yeah, I mean, DC is a huge part to blame for this. And to your point earlier, and also kind of agreeing with Brian, announcing that Peter Safran and James Gunn are rebooting the whole universe is basically tantamount to saying that this movie will have no impact going forward whatsoever, right? It's just going to be a two and done franchise. And diehard comic book fans like when movies interact. Obviously, the $1 trillion Marvel box office nomination suggests that casual fans and diehard fans alike like it when these movies kind of connect. So you basically just already told me 6 months in advance that Shazam isn't going to go anywhere, and it's just that the movie's going to be done and it's over. And I think that's a huge part of the reason why this movie just kind of died on the vine opening weekend. Yes,
I think that is a massive part of this, because they could not have made it clear that none of these movies are are part of the future for this this universe. Shazam, Aquaman, Black Adam, this Henry Cavill, even Gal Gadot. I mean, like, I expect that they'll do the same with the Flash, unless that Flash movie just goes bananas and does overcomes the Ezra Miller effect and is able to be like a huge movie. They could not have made it clear that they do not care about these movies, because they are not James Gunn movies, because they are not. I mean, it's, not to make a sports analogy too much, but like, it's very. I mean, it's the same as a new owner comes in and wants to immediately fires the GM, the coach, et cetera, because he wants his people, and his movies, his projects, whatever, fill in those slots. Like, you're right, can't, like, stock prices, that's part of it. That's a side of things that has to be considered. That I think the reason it was
announced was because of the shareholders. Because if they
I totally agree
Black Adam was going to bomb, then it's like, what incentive does anyone have to invest for the rest of the year in DC Warner Brothers Entertainment, right? Yeah. But if you say,
for sure,
oh, by the way, James Gunn's on the way, then boom, everyone's investing.
I think that it just goes. It shows, though. We've said 100 million times over the course of this podcast, this show. It's not just that I personally. I'll put it all on me, because I'll be the one that takes the heat. That's fine. Like, it's not just that I like the Marvel movies better. It's that they have had good leadership from the outset and have been there has been a structure in place, and Warner Brothers DC has just constantly failed at what I kind of think are pretty easy things to get right. They get wrong. And there had to have been a way to boost the stock prices and keep investors happy while also not just setting ablaze to the properties that were already done, you know? And the Zaz has been, you know what? He may work out financially at the end of all this stuff. He has been a disaster from a PR standpoint and a creator standpoint. And eventually, look, like we just saw Bob Chapek get ousted at Disney. He was having financial problems and creator problems. So, you know, both of those things have to be part of it. No, the studio is not going to fire the head. The board is not going to fire the head of the studio because the guy that made the people that made Batgirl don't want to work with him anymore, you know. But if there's financial failures in addition to creative failures and creators not wanting to work with the studio anymore, then that becomes a bigger problem. That was a big part of Chapek's deal. I think the Zaz from a PR standpoint and from a creator standpoint has been an absolute disaster. And this, I think, kind of speaks to that. There's got to be a way to say, hey, James Gunn's on the way, guys, without saying also we don't give a crap about Shazam, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think the important thing here on that is not just that the three of us are saying that, okay? It's from having done this show as long as we have, and Shane is like truly connected to all this stuff because of, you know, his real life and stuff. The industry, we know things about the news industry around the movie making industry that 90% of audiences do not know or care about, you know, that it never permeates the bubble of like my mom when she goes to see a movie. It doesn't make any, and it certainly has no deciding factor in whether my parents or some of my friends are going to go see a movie or not. This permeated, like, people who do not follow movies the way that we follow the movie industry knew that of what's happening with James Gunn and the turnover there. The Cavill part of that, I think, brought a lot of attention that maybe they were not expecting and weren't ready for, because it suddenly went from something that only industry people are going to really pay attention, industry people and sickos like us are going to pay attention to something that the average moviegoer, mass audience member knew is a part of it. And that I think leaks into the marketing. I think it leaks into the reception, and it certainly leaks into the way that the movie is approached by audiences. And so when an audience knows that the studio doesn't give a rip about the movie, then why should we give a rip about the movie? And I think that shows in the box office. I know I've been going on and on and on forever. I don't know if you have anything to add or counter that, Shane.
No, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I mean, this movie and the Black Adam stuff seems to have kind of pierced the cultural zeitgeist where people like your mom, my mom, kind of heard about it and knew about it. And when bad press reaches that level, then you know something is kind of horribly wrong. And yeah, to Kent's point, I think that there's a whole host of factors that went wrong with the making and marketing of this movie, but I do think that all of it ultimately does fall on DC. And to your point, Brian, I think that's why Marvel movies have been, just looking at it on like a graph, they're by and large better because they are more consistent than the DC movies. There's just more consistency. And so even though Marvel movies may consistently be B minuses and Bs, they're not A pluses and F minuses. You know what I mean? It's like they don't even out like that. So, yeah, it's just, this is such an interesting study of everything, like on production seemingly going okay on this movie, and then all the forces of the studio heads and the marketing and all this other stuff, behind the scenes drama on other films, like affecting it. And like I said, to me, ultimately, it's a shame because I thought this movie was a pretty fun, you know, kind of romp or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's a real shame when the bad buzz gets to that level where it permeates the audience members who shouldn't care about these types of things. And this definitely has happened with the last two DC products for sure.
Absolutely. And by the way, the Flash is sort of a weird outlier. I'm very curious to see what that's gonna look like reception wise. I would expect Aquaman is going to do so much worse than the last Aquaman did, and because that's part of this. That's part of
they're going to release it.
Anti-Vision, almost. You know,
I've heard it's terrible, right?
The Flash, dude.
No, I'm talking about Aquaman.
Oh, Aquaman, yeah, Aquaman. What we have heard so far, and DC is freaking notorious for using junkets and stuff like that to get good buzz out there first. Like it's a running joke here of a month before a movie comes out, it's this is the best movie I've ever seen, and we know that it's just DC, you know, sort of pumping in like doing the old Indianapolis Colts bit and pumping in fake fan noise or whatever. It's very similar to that. Even with that, the people that have seen Aquaman at this point have said it is just a disaster.
Well, and I mean, also, look at all the behind the scenes stuff on that. I mean, obviously we're not going to get into it, but like Amber Heard was in the movie and then they're trying to cut her out. I heard that Michael Keaton was in the movie and then they decided to cut him out in lieu of Ben Affleck. And then now with this James Gunn thing, they're cutting him out as well. And it's like, I can tell you definitively from having made a few films myself and also working in the studio system that constantly being forced to change storylines and cut things in, it rarely makes for a good movie, right? Not always. Sometimes movies come together in the end and they're fine, but it doesn't seem great. I mean, also, don't forget, I would like to say, I am fairly confident that The Flash is going to do just fine because I think that, again, like all the Ezra Miller stuff has not really permeated the culture at large outside of movies as well. I think that people may have heard like, oh, he's kind of a weird, but there hasn't been anything on like CNN. My mom does not know who Ezra Miller is. She does, however, know who Michael Keaton is. And the fact that he has returned to come back as Batman, even my mom is like, oh, I'd see that. You know what I mean? So I think The Flash is going to do pretty big numbers. Not because of him, because of the two Batmans in the movie. Yeah,
I think, I think it'll depend on the movie itself and how good it is, first of all. But also, I'm interested to see, closer to the time the movie comes out, the entire, the press leading up to it is just going to be like, Ezra Miller, remember this guy, remember what he did. Yeah. If you don't know, here's what he did.
Yeah, I do think that there's going to be a bad.
A lot of people are going to be like, "Wait, what?
Yeah,
I didn't know that," and then they're not going to want to go see it.
I think you're right on that. Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think the other thing too, Shane, is like and then we can get in the movie. Sorry, but
like if you watch Entertainment Tonight before, like the weekend before that, there's going to be be on Ezra Miller. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna.
I think that I think that it has. I think Shane, you're right that it hasn't really permeated the bubble at this point for mass audiences, but I think you're right too, Kent. Like it will. I think there will be a lot of broader audience discussion,
especially if it's successful. If it makes $100 million opening weekend, people are it can be like, should a movie with that's got a convicted guy make $100 million? Like it'll be controversial if it's successful.
It could be a big thing. But the other thing too is that it's not good enough for The Flash to do fine. Like if it's less than $1 billion, it's a failure because of how much they. That's. I know I'm being a little harsh on that, but like they have spent so much time and money to try to make this thing happen with an actor who, frankly, does not deserve to be given this many chance. I mean, good Lord. We're not talking about Daniel Day-Lewis here, It's not enough for the movie to do fine. It has to be a huge smash hit. And I don't know. We'll see. And I don't know how much this is going to play into, because that one is confusing on how it's going to relate to the future of the DC. There's no confusion with Shazam and Black Adam. We know there is no future for them, or at least not in the immediate future. This thing is kind of done. But the Flash, it feels like it could go either way, and I don't know. We'll see how it plays. But let's get into the movie.
Well, two quick things. Don't forget, The Flash was supposed to come out, I believe, in 2020, which is before a lot of this stuff started coming to light about Ezra Miller. So I'm not making excuses, but I am just saying when they cast him, when they shot the movie, none of this stuff was really public.
That is definitely true, but the counter to that is that was 3 years ago, and even in 2020, there were so many, not just rumors about like the problems of the problematic stuff with Ezra Miller, but like how bad the footage and the cut was looking and stuff like that. It was, I mean, I've said before, I think they should have just that's the one they should have pulled the plug on more than anything else.
Well, the
or
other
at
movie,
the very least, just
don't
forget it. We're gonna reshoot all of this with Grant Gustin.
Yeah, with
like,
somebody else.
whoever as the.
I don't
Flash.
want to bring this up because I don't want to give anyone any kind of advantages in the movie draft coming up. But have you heard about Tom Cruise in this?
Yeah, he loved it.
He said it's like the best movie he's ever seen.
Yeah. Okay. He's also Scientologist. You know, it's like
Here's I do want to. Throw
I don't know how I
there.
feel. Like this guy knows how, like a good movie when he sees one, right? Isn't this a guy that's gonna be like it's a piece of crap?
Yeah. I saw the trailer for the first time on Saturday before Shazam, and I finally kind of understood the bit. Like I got what they were going for, and I was like, okay, I kind of see how this could work. And every second that Ezra Miller was on screen, I was like, God, this is freaking terrible. He's so bad. They are so bad. And so, anyway, Shane, finish us off, and let's get into Shazam.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say too. We're talking about Aquaman, which is coming out. We're talking about The Flash, which is coming out. Don't forget, there is one other DC movie that is still inexplicably coming out this year. It's called Blue Beetle.
Yeah, Blue Beetle.
Here's the deal. I'm a pretty big DC guy. I think that's not really up for debate. If you showed me a lineup of all the DC heroes, I could pick them out of a lineup. Couldn't tell you the first thing about them. And I'm like, really? We're canceling Batgirl, which had Michael Keaton in it, which is a huge box office draw over a character that I'm a pretty big fan of. I have no idea what this is about. Like, what is this Blue Beetle movie? If DC thinks that a $30 million opening weekend for Shazam 2 was weak, I shudder to think of what's going to happen to Blue Beetle opening weekend. If that's just going to fizzle, like a pop rocket and just, and it's done,
I think I respect what Blue Beetle is like. I know, just having fun. I don't know anything about the character or the comics or anything like that, but like I know that like the cast and the representation element of it is really important, and so I think that's part of why we're gonna carry on. But I do worry for it, given everything that we have seen to this point with DC post the gun announcements. By the way, again, like that could be an awesome thing long term. It's just a really bad. It's a weird deal, I think, to just say we do not care about these 4 movies that we have like on the slate, like at all. We would rather them do poorly than try to figure out a way to kind of have our cake and eat it too. But anyway, Shazam 2, Fury of the Gods. What worked for you, Shane? And then we'll get into some negatives.
So here's what really worked for me in the movie. The first Shazam movie was all about, the joys of being a superhero when you're a kid, right? It was that wish fulfillment of, every young boy or girl had a cape or whatever and ran around your house and you pretended you were a superhero, whatever. And I think that movie did that well. Although for me personally, that's been a well-drawn note over comics over the years. I mean, Spider-Man has been doing that since his inception, right? He's a 15-year-old kid or whatever. So there was a lot of Shazam that we just kind of felt like, oh, we've been here before. What really hit me in this one, that the story beats that really worked for me, is the story beat that Billy Batson's character is about to turn 18, and he's scared that his foster parents are going to kick him out of the house. And because he's never really had a family of his own, he's like desperate to lose this group of people who he feels like is his family for the first time. And he's holding on to them a little bit too tight. That story arc really, really worked for me. And there was literally a moment in the film where I literally started tearing up for just a brief second. And I was like, what is happening to me in Shazam 2? Like, this is crazy. That it really hit me. I also thought that Zachary Levi, for me, he was a little bit over the top in the first movie. And I feel like in this one, he really kind of settled into it a little bit more. And then the other thing that I really, really enjoyed with this movie was getting all of the adult versions of the kids, in their, cause you got them in the first Shazam, but you got them for 6 seconds and that was it. Mm-hmm. Getting to see them as characters. Highlight for me was Megan Good, who played the adult version of, I think her name is Ruby. Her playing just a cute 8-year-old, just kind of ditzy and almost unaware of what's going on. Never failed to make me chuckle. That's just so funny to me. But yeah, I thought that the story arc and the emotional beats of this one hit a lot harder for me than the first one. So on just a general level, that's what I really liked about it. And that's why overall, some of the rougher points of the movie don't bother me as much, because the emotional core of the story really hit for me. I dug it. What about you, Kent?
Yeah, I agree. I like the family aspect of this story. I think it's cliche on purpose. You know, like the big scene with the suspension bridge. I'm like, oh God, another superhero movie with a suspension bridge sequence. God. But I think it's trying to do that and make fun of itself, but it doesn't know that it's being cliche. So I think that's part of it. I love Zachary Levi. I mean, this guy, if they didn't already have, if he wasn't already in DC, like I'd want this guy to be Superman. Like this guy is charismatic, he can act. I mean, he's handsome. You know, this guy's got the total package. I don't know what his career is going to be beyond Shazam, because I associate him with that so much. And now that Shazam's not going to be a thing, here's the thing that what they could have done, what James Gunn could have done. I love Zachary Levi as Shazam, not shutting the door on his character coming in my movies, but we don't have any plans right now.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah,
you know.
Shazam
could pop up in Superman 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
Zach Levi Shazam. Like to completely close the door on this, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense to me, because it was well received critically, commercially, even though it's not a $1 billion movie. Like this is a minor success, you know? You can write this off as a success, unlike Black Adam, which you'd have to really tweak the numbers to make it work. I mean, for me, this one was too long. I mean, 1 hour and 20 into this, I think right around the dragon sequence, when the dragon shows up, I'm like, all right, cool, we're wrapping this up. I look down at my watch, I'm like, oh man, we got almost an hour left. So I felt the fatigue, but you know, it is what it is with these at this point. But I thought the script was clever, like Rachel Zegler, of course, being added into it. I haven't seen Lucy Liu in a long time. So her and Helen Mirren's sister characters, whatever you want to call them, I thought they were interesting. The only thing I don't like is I like, what's his name, Freddy, in the first one a lot. I hated him in this one. I thought he was super annoying in this one.
When you say Freddy, do you mean the kid or the adult Freddy? Okay.
The kid Freddy. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I thought that he was pretty dang good in the first one. This one I was like, oh no, we crossed the threshold of, it's like Luke on Modern Family was like a really good fun kid actor for the first 3 seasons, and then at some point you're like, oh no, he's not good. Like, this is
right. Yes.
This is tough, man. This is tough.
Yeah.
This is that was the case for me. And the hard part of that is I think that the other kid, the kid Billy Batson, is actually a pretty good actor. And so
yeah, I thought he was fine.
I get that you want to have Shazam, like the Zachary Levi on screen as much as possible, but in hindsight, I wish that we could maybe switch those two, like the character wise. But anyway, yeah, look, I think this is vaguely on par with the first one. I'm with you, Shane. The family stuff worked for me. I added it to my letterbox list of movies that made me cry this year, or at least made me tear up.
You have a list of movies that make you cry?
I did. This year I did. I'm doing a new
and as Brian gets older, the list gets longer and longer.
Yeah. I've got let me see what the title of it is. You can find my letterbox, Brian Gill. Movies that made me cry in the year of our Lord 2023. So so far we're at 8.
8 this year?
Not new movies. Not all of them are new. Most of them aren't new movies. But like,
I'm like 8 all time for me.
The other day, and I got a little.
Ken, you are dead inside, but man,
I am. But I feel like I cry at appropriate times. But 8 this year, that's incredible.
Yeah, no,
I'm impressed.
I'm a mess.
I'm a mess.
No, but like, look, I'm defending Brian on this one. Like, out of nowhere, there's a scene in this movie where, like, all of a sudden I start tearing up, and I'm almost laughing at myself. I'm like, what is happening? What is happening to me?
Family stuff, surrogate family, foster care, like all that stuff is a big emotional trigger for me anyway. And so if you just do it like not even good, like if you just do it not bad, then it's an easy cry for me, or tear up anyway.
Yeah, from the first one, the scene where his mom like leaves him with the cop.
Brutal.
Oh my gosh, that's tough.
That's a rough sequence.
Yeah,
I liked how the adult versions of the superheroes were good, or were or it's an easier watch than kids on acting can be most of the time.
Right.
So I think that was a pretty good choice, and if and when this comes back, I would say do most of this with just the adults, not the kids. I think we're probably at that point at this with the age of most of these kids and stuff. I would do that for sure if this comes back. Levi's an interesting one to me. I'm hot and cold with him. I think that he does this very well. I think he does this Tom Hanks big thing well. I don't feel like for me, I don't think he has like the gravitas that I want from a superhero that I'm going to take seriously, I guess. But that may just be the right note that I don't know how long you can play that note, but as long as you can, I guess, you should. So he plays that note really well. I'm not sure how well it progresses. We also have to be honest, like some of all of this and maybe even some of their decision making regarding what they're doing with Shazam is that he's had a pretty bad press run over the last 6 to 12 months too. And I don't think to the level of Ezra Miller. So, maybe it's a little hypocritical, but I don't think that he's somebody that people really like to work with either. So, there's some of that factors in. I think that he's fine at this kind of thing. I think he kind of, as long as there's like an element within the character of being just a little bit cheesy, not over the top cheesy, but I think he does that pretty well. And so for this, I would say that for me, he is better in the first movie than he is in the second movie because the second movie asks a little bit more range. And I'm not saying he doesn't have it. I just don't think he's quite as good at it as he is just playing the kind of goofy adult, the never grow up adult, I guess.
Yeah. He's good at playing a man child in a good way, I think.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Rachel Zegler's a great addition to the cast. They did a really good job too of just like kind of making a CW movie where it's like everybody on screen is they're all beautiful people. So that I think that can always help. And when you add Rachel Zegler to the cast, I think you know what you're doing there.
No singing scenes, so big wasted opportunity.
That's a shame.
That was a weird part of the online discourse with this movie as well, where it was like, why is Rachel Zegler in the cast? She was in West Side Story. And it's like, yeah, she was in West Side Story.
She's in
one movie.
She's
amazing in West Side Story.
She was nominated for an Oscar, wasn't she? So
yeah.
Why would you not?
I mean, it's like people who say things like that, again, have like a fundamental misunderstanding of how the business works. It's like, you don't just do one movie and then you're rich for the rest of your life. That's not how that works. You have to do like 15 before you have retirement money. And 2, doing a movie that's going to put you in front of 1,000 million eyeballs will get you into other movies that it's like, so that was one of the weirdest things. Like, why is she in this movie? Why is she stooping so low? It's like, because she needed a gig after West Side Story and she took one. What are you talking about?
And Shazam was well received. Like, I was actually thinking about that watching this. Like, if I was her agent and I got the call, hey, we're doing Shazam 2, I would have been like, man, I saw Shazam 1. It was really fun. You should do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what that superhero.
And also, by the way, your main co-stars are going to be Lucy Liu, who is an action movie icon, and Helen Mirren, who is a literal dame and an icon of the screen. You get to hang out with them every day for 3 months. No, I'm not going to do it. I think that people might not like it online. Like, of course she was going to do this movie. Stop that.
Stupid. That's a stupid criticism.
Yeah, that was bizarre.
There are fair criticisms about this. So let's transition there. Look at that, Radio Man segue.
You're a pro, a consummate pro.
I'm a pro at this. I thought it was a poorly edited movie. You shouldn't notice the editing. We always say that you only notice editing when it's really good or really bad. I thought this was on the really bad side. I would chalk some of that up to studio interference, but at the end of the day, the director David Sandberg is kind of on the hook for that. It's a movie that felt like, I don't even know if it's fair to say it just felt like a lot of scenes with no interconnective tissue. But what it felt like to me was that on day one of writing this script, they brought out the whiteboard and they wrote down 50 things that here's our ideas, here's what we're trying to get into this movie, and then no one ever crossed anything off the list. And it was like, well, now we have to get the dragon. Gotcha. All right. And we got to have like a weird deal about how there's no air inside this dome. So we're going to want this character to be real sweaty. And now we obviously we need to bring in the unicorns, even though there was really like a 2-second mention of unicorns earlier. And it's like, there were I'm sure there were lots and lots and lots of good ideas. And at the end of the day, the editing made me feel like they were so committed to making sure that all of these ideas made it to screen rather than does this fit within, the actual scope of the movie. So I thought that's a big criticism I have. I think as a result, it feels like a little bit weirdly paced, and I think the people that suffer the most from that are Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, because almost every scene that they're in, really from the jump, it kind of feels like you have walked into a room where a scene has been happening for 20 or 30 seconds before you're seeing what happens. It's very choppy and short on that front. And look, Helen Mirren is a freaking legend. This did not come across as one of her better performances, and I would say the same for Lucy Liu. I actually felt like she was actually kind of bad, but the more I thought about it, the more I thought, I don't really think that is her fault. I think that is the editing and the way in which so much has been crammed into this. We've never really had an opportunity for that character to develop or have any sort of real background. It's like we just jump in and she's like, I hate humans, now I'm gonna kill them, and that's kind of it. That's all there really is to it.
Yeah.
So those are my biggest criticisms beyond kind of what I said about Zach Levi earlier. But I don't know. What about you, Kent? Where are you at with this?
Yeah, like I said, too long. It had some cliche big sequences. How hard is it to come up with 3 sequences that are unique and original? Like, how many months do they plan these things? I don't understand why we keep seeing the same things in the same settings, the same creatures over and over and over again. I'm actually kind of opposite of you, Shane. I thought Megan Good's character. Did we talk about, Brian, we should have talked about this at the top on the business side of things, but the fact that David O. Sandberg is like defending the reception of this. Did you see the tweet he put out?
Yeah, I did.
This should never be you should never do this, directors. The many directors who listen to this show. He put out this tweet that said, like, I don't know why critics don't love this movie. I thought it was really good. Something like that. No, never do that. It's never going to work out.
I think that you get like one of those. I would phrase it differently than he did for sure. I think that there's something to be said for like, hey, we made this movie for audiences and audiences seem to really like it. So thanks for watching it. I hope you go see it this weekend, or whatever. Tell a friend, something like that. But I am with you. I think that this has become, I'm sure that this is just like, this is social media and this is what happens and this is what you do and whatever. But like, I'm not saying that you just need to be like, because look, in their situation, I understand his frustration. If I was him, I would feel like the studio sold me out too, and or hung me out to dry and did not support me the way that you would expect to be supported for a movie that cost $125 million to make and all that kind of stuff.
He didn't say that though. He said, "I think it's a really good movie. I don't know why critics don't like it more."
Yeah,
he's actively complaining about film criticism in general. It's like, dude. This is a part of it.
Well, no, yeah, but I think what he was referring to is that there were some critics who were just seamlessly negative out of no reason. And it's like, look, if you're Zack Snyder and you're making like Batman v Superman or Justice League, you have to be prepared for a large number of people who are going to hate it and hate it passionately because he's making some pretty bold choices. There is nothing in this movie that is vehemently bold one way or the other. And some critics were treating like David Sandberg came over to their house and kicked their dog. And it's like, I think that's what he was responding to is like, look, if you don't like the movie, you don't like the movie. But like, there's no reason for some of these like really negative reviews that I'm seeing. I think the other thing too is that he's probably learned the hard way in the last 2 weeks that like tone and sarcasm is a little hard to do on Twitter, like when you can't hear the inflection on someone's voice. Cause he also did another tweet where he made a cheeky joke about like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter if it bombed. I got paid my fee up front. And like, it was just a joke he was making, right? Like I just made it to you. You got the tone of the text that I was saying. And then apparently like that story just got picked up and it was on the cover of like CNN or on the front page of CNN. And he was like, oh my God, people are taking what I said out of context. So I think that perhaps what's happening is he's just made some comments that need context and tone, and that doesn't exist on Twitter. And it just got spun out of proportion.
Yeah.
It should never be the move to go on Twitter and complain about the reviews of your movie. It should never even be a thought. And the fact that it happened, I mean, he literally said like, F this, I'm going back to horror movies. I'm done with you guys. I can't take this anymore. It was like one of those types of things. Like, okay, dude.
Yeah, I would kind of sit in the middle there. I think that you're never going to win when you start that kind of tweet and conversation. And even if you're right, even if you're justified or partially right or justified, it just ends up being, it's just, I don't know.
You move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Bands, you don't release a record and then everybody hates it and be like, actually, I think it was really good music and y'all are wrong. That never works out.
Yeah.
You got to learn to take it on the chin.
Just to kind of take your lumps and move on, I think. Because you're right. Like it gets aggregated so quickly and so poorly. We see that so much in sports and I don't think it happens as frequently or as quickly in the movie industry as it does in sports. So maybe that's just a lesson that these dorks who make movies, I'm kidding, need to learn from the sports world is like anything you say publicly will be aggregated so quickly and will immediately be taken out of context or with context added to it that you didn't intend or, whatever else. And so I don't love the concept of like, well, if you're critical of my movie, then that means you're an idiot. I don't like that. And that's not totally what he says, but that there does seem to be, there's a certain pocket of the creative community that I think does feel that way, and that sort of a bit permeates these kinds of conversations. And it's like, well, I mean, I feel like there's fair criticism and then there's unfair criticism. I hope that we on this show I'm sure we've never been 100% fair on like every single thing that we've done, but we try to make most of this balanced and fair. And
the effort is the important part. That's the effort. No one's perfect all the time, but it's the effort that counts.
But it's just it has felt like it's felt more than ever before. Like over the last year, I have felt like more and more creators are spending more time kind of both preemptively, like Bobby Eggs did for 6 months before The Northman came out, it felt like, of just griping about the money that he got to make his movie about Norse rituals and stuff. But like, this is part of the deal. You get money from studios. Studio expects certain things. We all understand that studio is not working with the best of intentions, doesn't care about your art as much as they care about the money and all this. Your movie then gets released to critics. Critics like it or they don't like it. Then it goes to audiences. Audiences like it or they don't like it. That's part of the process. And if you're not able or willing to engage in the process as it exists, then I would suggest you don't take the money from studio and you just kind of, cut this off at the pass and not deal with it.
Yeah. And to your point, you take your lumps so that you move on to the next movie and hopefully it's better,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. But anyway, I don't know that we need to get like super in depth on this movie because it's not really a super in depth movie, but I guess for the sake of having fair and balanced criticism, like we do here at the show. We'll do spoilers and just how did the ending work for you in the final battle and the sequence with Shazam versus the dragon and such? Did that work? Was it worth the payoff? Did it leave you, wanting more, lacking, whatever? How did you feel about the final act, Shane?
So for me, I mean, just touching on some of my lows, that was kind of my low, my singular low for the movie, is that I do feel like I slightly disagree. I thought the editing of the movie was fine until the third act when the dragon showed up. From there on, I was like, oof, we can move this along a lot quicker. Good to know that it's not just me who felt that way, because I'm not a dragon guy. They don't really rev my engine. So when a dragon shows up, I'm nonplussed, right? It's like,
what about a dragon made of tree though?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the color of its skin is. I don't see dragon skin color or creed or but like so for me it showed up and I was like, ugh, like no thanks. It felt like it dragged on a little bit too long. My other kind of low for this movie, and this is just weirdly specific to me, I'll just throw this out here. Did you guys ever see the movie The Other Guys, the one with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell? Yeah. Uh-huh. Do you remember the scene in that movie where Mark Wahlberg goes over to Will Ferrell's house like for dinner, and he walks in and Will Ferrell's just married to Eva Mendes? Uh-huh. And the whole time he's like, what is happening here? Like he literally
Jerry
can,
Gergic,
he just cannot believe. Exactly. He just cannot believe. Yeah. Every single time it cut back to the foster mom, I was like,
I know.
What's happening? Am I being punked here? Like, what is happening?
Yes. She's a very attractive woman, and I assume that guy's real funny.
I mean, it's like, look, she was, not only is she like drop dead gorgeous, but she's an incredible actress too. But it was just like, she was distractingly pretty. And the whole time, like every time it cut back to her, I was like Mark Wahlberg. I'm like, seriously, what's going on here?
What's going on here?
What like, where are the cameras? Like, am I being punked? Like, Unbelievable. I just couldn't get over it. Like, I guess I forgot she was in the first one too, but I guess if I went back and watched it, I would feel the same.
Maybe the peak of that is Chef with when Jon Favreau's current girlfriend is Scarlett Johansson and his ex-wife is who is it from Gloria from Modern Family?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Yeah, Sofia Vergara.
Sofia Vergara, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, who wrote this movie? Because I get it.
I would do the same if I wrote a movie. My whiny ex is Anna de Armas. I'm like, oh my goodness, enough. Jeez, my goodness.
It's just always bothering me, just nag.
Yeah.
Kent, what about you? How did the final act work for you? Did it all come together? Or
I actually liked the unicorns, so I'll defend the unicorns. I was thinking, why haven't we seen more unicorns in movies? Unicorns, like, we need a unicorn horror movie. That's what this made me. Attack of the Unicorns. I want to see that. Right. The unicorns impaling people was pretty awesome. I actually liked the weird creatures that came out of the tree thing. I thought they were pretty
cool that was looking. A fun scene. Yeah.
I like that scene. So
good creature design.
Yeah, I like that. So
I like that.
It just took way too long to get there.
Yeah, I agree.
I understand the Avengers being 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but like Shazam 2? What are we doing? Get me out of there in 80 minutes, please.
Yeah.
I was so ready for it to be over that I think I just blocked out like the last 20 minutes mentally.
Okay, so how do we feel about the final? Again, we're in spoilers. How do we feel about the final cameo of this whole thing, and the relation of Wonder Woman to the survival of this character?
I mean, look, it felt a little Deus Ex Machina, right, where she just kind of comes out of nowhere and she just kind of saves the day. But whatever. I mean, it was. By that point, like, you knew this movie was going to bomb at the box office when DC spoiled that in their own trailers like 2 weeks before the release, or like a week before the release.
I didn't see that trailer, and I'm glad I didn't, because I didn't know that she
was going to be in it. Yeah,
pop up.
So she shows up, whatever, kind of does her thing, and like, I mean, it was It was fine. I mean, it did what it needed to do, which is it brought him back to life. It tied it in a little bit with some of the DC characters, and it was fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't feel like, oh, this is so awesome. Maybe just because I also saw it coming because DC told me it was coming, but I don't know. It didn't feel like a natural part of the story, if that's what you're asking, but it also didn't feel like so aggressively out of left field that I didn't like it either. It was just like, okay, whatever, Wonder Woman's here. He obviously has a crush on her, so it was kind of a nice little story beat, wrap up that joke or whatever. But it was fine,
Okay. I thought it was another example of poor editing there, because when she pops up, it's like, yeah, okay, I guess they've been setting this up the whole time, but also I don't think they did enough for that to really be the payoff. Like it wasn't a good setup. I would imagine that the setup's better in the 4-hour cut of this that I do not want to see, but that this would be a more complete setup. But also it did similar to me as Cavill does in Black Adam, where I'm like, right, but like you've decided that she's not part of this anymore. So like what? I'm not sure what necessarily. I mean, I get what the point is for just this story, but the way these things, attach to each other, I'm not sure what the point of it is, but, whatever. What about you, Kent? We can grade this and move on, but what do you think about Gal Gadot and the way that it concludes?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I agree. I think they were setting up for that. I thought the scene with actual Shazam in Gal Gadot's body was very funny moment in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Disturbing, but funny.
Yeah.
And
Jamon Hansu's awesome.
He's in like all these movies.
He freaking rules, dude. Gosh,
he's in every. Awesome. I think he's in every movie.
He didn't die in this either.
How sharp did he look at the end too? When he showed up, with his hat and everything, I was like, man, he is a fly looking guy.
To have a tenth of the swag that guy has. My gosh,
that guy kills it.
So good. He's awesome.
I also just want to real quickly touch base on the other cameos at the end of the movie where. The two people from Peacemaker show up and they want him to join the Justice Society of America. That apparently the original plan was to have what is his name? Alton Hodges, the guy who played Hawkman in Black Adam.
Yeah.
And then also Atom Smasher were going to show up. They were going to be the people who asked him to join the Justice Society, which would, make sense since they're in the Justice Society. And The Rock vetoed that and was like, no, they're in my movie. They can't be in like a B class movie like Shazam 2. And so
what a douche.
I know, again. And it's like, I think that's why I've soured so poorly on The Rock recently, is because it's like, it's fine when he's in a dumb action movie, but it's like when he's in a comic book movie, all right, son, now you're in my world. And you're ruining it, because it's like he claims that he loves comics and he's there for the fans. And it's like, you're not here for the fans, man. If you were here for the fans, you would have realized that would have been better than getting C-list characters from the Peacemaker TV show. Like, why? So anyways, that little teaser thing at the end was funny, where he thought it was the Justice League and it's the Justice Society, but would have been better if the right characters were in that cameo.
Yeah. Yeah. That was and then to have the second teaser with Mark Strong and what's the caterpillar's name?
Worm guy. I honestly forget.
Mind Master or something like that. I felt like, again, I know when you're making this movie, you don't know that Warner Brothers is about to pull the rug out from under you, but I might have just cut that, because it's never going to get a payoff at this point.
Right, just put it as a DVD extra.
Yeah, it's like, even if Shazam and company get brought back at some point, which I totally think is... I don't think they're closing the door on any of these characters at some point. I just think they're closing the door on 2026's Shazam 3, and whatever.
Yeah. It's his character is based off magic. Just do some magic screenwriting stuff and bring him into the, it's not that hard, guys. It's not real life.
Yeah. Yeah. How
about they cast Sinbad as the new Shazam?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Just get real meta. Be good. All right, let's grade this thing and do some weekly recommends. I will give Shazam 2, or Shazam Fury of the Gods. Excuse me. I don't want Zachary Levi to be angry at me on Twitter. I'll give it a B+. A very slight B+. Like, I'll rewatch this whenever Coop wants to rewatch it, but it is it's fine plus. So maybe really a B, but I had a decent time with it, and maybe some of it was I was expecting it not to be good. But anyway, B plus for me. Kent, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a little lower. I'm a B on it.
Okay. Yeah. Shane?
I'm as surprised as anybody to say this out loud, but A minus for me. Like, I was genuinely delighted at how much I enjoyed this movie, even though it was rough around the edges. So A minus for me.
Have fun at the movies, you know? I mean, whatever. We don't need to relitigate it, but it's such a strange one that people have decided. I know part of this is the Snyder Bros. That's a huge part of the internet reaction to it. It's funny. It is a strange one for me for critics to just destroy, or not even destroy, but to pick apart. It's a strange one. That's fine. Whatever. But just, have fun at the movies. I would say have fun at the movies. I'm gonna get that tattooed if I can find any space on my back.
Pipe down and eat some more popcorn. How about that?
Okay.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Man fam, something I learned recently that's helped me out a lot is that it's okay to share your feelings. Yeah, we don't really get serious on this show very often, but it's okay to feel stressed, to feel overwhelmed, and to feel like you need someone to talk to. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way we do until we talk it through. So BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. We're big proponents on Mad About Movies of you staying connected with yourself and making sure that you can accomplish every goal that you've set for yourself in life. Therapy is a great way to do that. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/madaboutmovies today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/madaboutmovies.
All right, let's do a quick weekly recommend.
Weekly recommends.
All right, Kento, what is your weekly recommend this week?
Yeah, this recommend is inspired by a movie we reviewed a few weeks ago, Cocaine Bear. And
Yes.
my wife Zoe came to see that movie with me, and we got to talking after the movie and about the
Sorry,
cast.
I just really want this to be, we started doing cocaine. And
Yeah, I'm just recommending Coke. It's changed our lives.
I was going to say, Ken, you don't even need to put bear on the end of that sentence. Just recommend. Yeah.
Sorry.
We started talking about
I mean,
the cast of the movie, and I was like, man, it felt like an Americans reunion. And she had never seen it. So we started from episode 1 this past weekend, and it's still awesome, guys.
So good.
So good. The pilot, I hadn't seen the pilot probably in a decade, and I forgot about the Fleetwood Mac sequence at the beginning. That was sick. There's so many great twists in the Phil Collins at the end. There's so many great twists in there, like it's very Hitchcockian. I loved it. She loved it, and we're on episode 3 or 4 now, and starting that rewatch. She's excited about it, and I get to introduce her to the Americans. And so, listener, if you've never seen this show, check it out. It's one of the best shows.
Love that. Love that. I did Rank Kings a few weeks ago, and we did. It's actually probably longer than a few weeks at this point, but we did. I think it was pilots, it was top 10 pilots, TV pilots, and I rewatched the Americans pilot just to make sure that it belonged as high on my list as it did, and it did. It's so freaking good. That show is awesome. I'm jealous of Zoe getting to watch this for the first time. That is an incredible show. That might be a top 10er for me, like show of all time. It's an incredible stuff overall. But Shane, have you seen The Americans?
I have not. I know you guys talk about how great it is all the time, and it is on my list, like high on my list of shows that I got to get around to. How many seasons? 5?
There's 6.
6. Okay, it's
And
on my list for sure.
Each of them have 13, except the last one has 10. So they're not
Gotcha.
that. It's not like 20 episode season
But it is intense. It's not something you can put on in the background. It's
you need to pay attention.
show.
It's a lot of like Cold War stuff, but it's
I
like
love the Cold War so much.
I mean, this notion of people living next door to you that are spies is an awesome premise, and let's just say it lives up to that premise and more.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I hear it's fantastic. I got to get around to it. One of these days I will. I promise.
It's great. It's great. Okay. Shane, what's your weekly recommend?
You know what? I'm going to throw out something that has probably been recommended on the show before, but in honor of the late Lance Reddick, who sadly passed away this week, I am going to be the voice of your conscience that is going to remind you again, if you have not watched HBO's The Wire, watch it. It is singularly one of the greatest television shows in the history of TV. Among casting directors and filmmakers and all sorts of people in Hollywood, if you were on the show The Wire, it is literally like a badge of honor of like it's like saying you went to Harvard, like but like actor level, where it's like, oh my God, they were on The Wire, bring them in. And his character of I think it's Daniels or McDaniels, I forget off the top of my head, is just a masterclass in poise and acting. He is incredible in that show. The writing in that show is unbelievably dense in a good way. And it's just one of the best shows of all time. So if you have not watched The Wire, now's the time to do it. The only thing I will say though, is that, we're all distracted. I am personally guilty of that as well. The Wire is not a show that you can watch while you play, solitaire on your phone. You got to put your phone away and like give the show its due. But
it might be the most you have to pay attention to this show of all time.
Yes,
like, it is.
Yes, exactly. But I legitimately do not know a person who has watched the show and did not come away raving about the show.
Yeah.
So if you haven't,
might be the best show of all time.
It might be. I mean, it's like that, Sopranos. Like there are definitely some, but Lance Reddick was incredible in The Wire, and him alone is one of the reasons you should watch it. So it's on HBO Max if you have it. I don't know if it's streaming anywhere else, but check it out, The Wire.
Yeah, that's a great recommend. I would definitely say The Wire is like, when we say that's the greatest show ever. That what I always say is like, you're never we can't prove this, right? Like it's not possible to decide what is the best show or the best movie or whatever. What you're looking for is a show that when I ask you, hey, what's the best show you've ever seen, and you throw out show X, that my response is, oh yeah, I could totally see that, even if that's not my pick. You know what I mean? And The Wire is, I don't know how many shows are in that category. I don't know if it's 5 or 10 or 20, but The Wire is definitely however, if you want to limit it to a Mount Rushmore situation, okay, I think The Wire belongs in that conversation.
To the point where looking up like any popular television critics list of best shows of all time is now boring because all you're looking for is what's number one and what's number two, Sopranos or The Wire. It's either one of the two. It's like that's not negotiable,
Certainly from this era, it's The Wire, Sopranos, Mad Men, Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And that, however you want to rank those things is fine. There are nuances to it. That are better to whatever. Like Alan Sepinwall said The Simpsons is the best show of all time, and that actually makes a lot of sense too. There's lots that you can say. The Wire belongs in that conversation. So I will make my recommend a TV show as well, so we can have a 3 TV show week here. I read a book, I read a book last year that came out a couple years ago called Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It is like an oral history of a band from the 60s and 70s that doesn't exist, called Daisy Jones and the Six. And I really loved the book. It's very Almost Famous-y. The band is sort of a stand-in for Fleetwood Mac a little bit. There's some definite similarities between the band in the book and the Fleetwood Mac situation. Fleetwood Mac, by the way, having a renaissance right now. I don't know if you're aware of this, but like Gen Z just discovered the 94 reunion concerts, and it has become quite a thing on social media again. So
the non-Stevie reunion.
No, the one with Stevie, the dance.
I think
it was 94. Yeah, like when yes, yeah. the Silver Springs is making the rounds on like TikTok and
Got
Instagram
it.
and all that sort of stuff, like that performance.
Isn't it great when younger generations like kind of on their own find stuff? Like,
I love it.
Like,
I freaking love that.
I know you
for
can't
sure.
wait for the day that like Cooper comes to you and he's like, Dad, sit down for a second. I got to talk to you about something. You're like, what? And he's like, have you heard of this band, The Beatles? Like they're phenomenal.
Yeah,
and you're like,
I
yeah,
know.
kiddo.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Except for us, it'll be like Newfound Glory. Yes, freaking yes.
that's exactly
If we're
right.
lucky, yeah.
I just compared the Beatles to Newfound Glory. Anyway, the the show adaptation of Daisy Jones and the Six hit Amazon Prime a couple weeks ago. My wife and I caught up on it over spring break. It's not I think it's 10 episodes and maybe 8 episodes are out now, something like that. I think the final 2 come out this week. It's really good. It's fun. It might, I'm not totally sure yet. It might verge on closer to like a guilty pleasure show than The Wire, you know, like Mount Rushmore kind of show. But so far I'm really digging it. And I mean, you know, Almost Famous is my favorite movie of all time. So I'm kind of in the bag for the scene. The acting's pretty solid. The performance is good. The song that they're performing, similar to like A Star Is Born, they have this one big song that they perform a few times, and it's written by Marcus Mumford. It's pretty great. And I'm enjoying. The 2 leads are both acting and singing. Rami Malek could never. It's kind of a good bit. I like that too. And it is presented as like sort of a documentary kind of thing, or a behind the music. Like there's interviews with the cast 20 years in the future about the events that took place in the 60s and 70s for this band's like rise to stardom and eventual collapse and all that kind of stuff. And it's really good. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Taylor Jenkins Reid's good author. I read another one of her books this last week and planning on reading a couple more probably over the course of the year. But Daisy Jones and the Six on Amazon Prime is the recommend for me this week.
Nice.
All right, boys, it's been fun. Thanks for being here, Shane. Thanks for pinch hitting for Richard. Hopefully his suspension will get lifted. Our lawyers are working on it around the clock.
You have powerful lawyers because he keeps coming back.
Yeah, they can't keep us down. They can't keep us down. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, awesome. Tell a friend, okay? Leave us a review on iTunes or whatever that's called now, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And then if you want more, I can't imagine that you do, but if you do somehow, madaboutmoviespodcast.com/VIP, head over there, hit that site, subscribe. For $5 a month, you get access to another episode every single week. We do a throwback episode, retrospective episodes, sometimes bonus episodes. I think Kent and I are going to knock out an episode on The Last of Us at some point in the next week or two. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, $5 a month, you get access to just, I don't know, hundreds of episodes now at this point in the back catalog.
Hundreds.
As well as our exclusive VIP Discord. The VIP throwback episode this week is 8 Men Out, which is a baseball movie because baseball is just about to come back. We always like to do a little baseball action here this time of year. So go do that. madaboutmoviespodcast.com/VIP and subscribe. Next week, we'll be here on the main feed talking about John Wick 4. I cannot wait.
Yeah.
Until then, stay safe, and we'll see you at the cinema. Goodbye.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe, but I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face.
They're making me yah-yah, the salads and scrambled eggs.
They're calling again.